Hello, rock stars, and welcome to Free Motion Quilting Bandcamp. I am so excited to have you here. My name is Holly and Knight of String and Story, and it is my job to guide you to quilt with confidence. Welcome to my home sewing space. This is the loft of our townhouse. And as you can see, I've got it outfitted with all my quilty things. So you didn't know you were getting a little behind the scenes peek in addition to everything else this evening. If you have not already, do please jump into the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from. I see Anita and Diana, Melissa, Vicky, Stephen, Robin, Tuesday, Roxanne, Deborah, Liz, Becky, Marie, Karen, Blue Dog Dreaming, Madonna, 5, that's a lot of fives, VM, Joyce, welcome, 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 Rockstars. That was a lot of welcomes. I got stuck on my own words, but it's just because I'm excited. It's okay. This is what happens around here, right? So say hi in the chat. I would love to greet you. Pat says, greetings from the hot state of Texas. It actually cooled off a tiny baby bit here the last couple of days. So that's really exciting. Francie Joe, so good to see you. Lori, hello, hello. We officially have Canada in the house. I am thrilled that you are here. Susie and Olympia. Oh my gosh, it's so exciting to see you. Maureen, we get a sneak peek of your graduation project tonight. So I'm excited that you're here to see it. That makes me really, really happy. Juliet, Susie, oh, it is fabulous, fabulous, fabulous to see all of y'all. Are you ready to get started? Put like a confetti emoji or a thumbs up or something like that down in the chat if you're ready to rock and roll. I'm really excited about this because just, to put the cart before the horse, if you've been around for a minute, I have had a particular set of lessons that I've been teaching right about this time of year as we start to open up Free Motion Quilting Academy. And I've been teaching the same ones for a while. And this year it was really fun to sit down with Team Rockstar and say, let's change it up. What are some things that we get asked about a lot by folks who are learning how to free motion quilt that we have not formally taught in quite the same way? And that's what we're tackling tonight. So I would like to officially welcome you to Quilting Rockstar Free Motion Quilting Bandcamp. It is time to start your journey to free motion quilting with confidence and become a quilting rock star, right? So exciting. So this week, I have the pleasure of helping you kick off your free motion quilting journey. And it's my mission to help more quilters finish their own quilts skillfully and joyfully. If you had the opportunity to come in to String and Story on Main at any point, it's not going to take long for you to hear us saying something about joy units, right? There doesn't seem to be a standard unit of measurement for how much joy something gives you. So we simply call them joy units. And I think that's a really important part of what we do with quilting, right? We have a lot of reasons why we're quilters, but a lot of them have to do with joy. All right. Quilt as desired is so often a dirty word, right? When we think about finishing our own quilts, we get a sense of overwhelm. And I want to start to turn that on its head so that when you get to the end of piecing your quilt top, you are excited to get to finish that quilt yourself on your home machine. Or I saw that we have some long armors in the chat. Love that too. Y'all know I quilt on both. I love both. So exciting. Finishing your own quilt is a creative and rewarding practice. And when it feels hard, I just want to remind you that I and the other quilting rockstars have your back. You are going to quilt amazing things. All right. Now, if you're brand new around here, give me a holler, like say first time in the chat. If this is your very first String and Story event, first Bandcamp, first String and Story Live, I want to know who's new around these parts. Blue Dog Dreaming, we're going to talk about that tonight, and I am so excited. But my name is Holly and Knight. I have been teaching free motion quilting since 2017, and I have watched literally thousands of quilters just like y'all grow in their confidence to free motion quilt through my blog, workshops, and digital courses. Look at these first timers. Becky, Tuesday, Melissa, Diana, welcome, welcome, welcome. I know we got some OG folks like Pat here too. Robin, it's your first time. Vicky, it's your first time at Bandcamp. Susie, Thelma, welcome. So good to see you. Y'all, this is thrilling. Thank you for choosing to spend some time with me this evening. It is an absolute honor. When I am not at the shop, you're probably going to find me hanging out with this cutie little bunch. I'm married to the hubster. His real name is John, but we call him hubster because there's a lot of Johns. And we have 2 little boys named Jem and Ian. We also have our amazing dog, Havana, who I think she might have put herself to bed. She's around here somewhere. And we have 2 cats who might make an appearance while I'm live, but they don't usually like to come all the way up to the loft. And we're actually down to one fish tank. I should have updated this. That's a recent change. But I can frequently be found hanging out on the Duluth Town Green. Love spending time out there, salsa or swing dancing, hanging out with friends, listening to music. It's a good life in Duluth, Georgia. What can I say? Karen says, first time. Blue Dog Dreaming, first time live. Leanne says, hello. Hello, Leanne. Steven says, first time. Kathleen says, hello. Angela says, first time. I am absolutely delighted to have all y'all here with me. This is so good, so good. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Now that you know a little tiny bit about me, and I'm sure I will find more ways to slide stories in as we are going along together, but a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. The first, I want you to get comfy. Right, whether you're in your sewing room working on something, whether you have your workbook. I just realized that I left my workbook. Let me grab my workbook. Hang on. Do, 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 do. I was very careful to make sure I remembered to bring it home from the shop, and I was less careful to make sure that I got it out. All right, now even I'm prepared for class. Look at me go. All right. So whether you prefer to be sewing as you are listening, whether you prefer to be taking notes in your workbook, or you just want to be curled up in an armchair, all of these are the correct thing. Just get comfy, settle in, enjoy your time. The other thing that I want you to know is I really do want you to ask all the questions. All the questions. One of my favorite things about this format for teaching is that the moment you think of a question, you can type it in the chat. You don't have to wait for me to pause. You don't have to wait for me to ask if there are questions. Please, as those questions arise, drop them in the chat. And when I come to a place where I'm going to take a breath, it does occasionally happen. I know I talk really fast. I'm going to make sure that I peek at that chat and get your questions answered. Okay. I think as there's many things we'll talk about tonight that can be roadblocks to learning how to free motion quilt. But sometimes I think we just have anxiety about not knowing if we can ask the questions, right? Sometimes we're like, oh, I'm a little embarrassed to ask this. I don't know if it's too basic, right? There is no question that is too new or introductory or basic here, right? That's what this space is for. And I want you to leave feeling confident that you got lots of answers about some of the stuff that's been on your mind. All right. Diane says first time for me as well, or Diana, excuse me. Allison says hello from New Mexico. Hello in New Mexico. I love New Mexico. Hello, Anita. First time. Kathy says first time. Mary says I'm new to free motion quilting. Hello, Lisa. I hope you're feeling better. I'm so sorry you've been sick. Angela says first time. Kathleen says hello. Fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous. Now, you, my dears, are in the right place. If you desperately want to finish your own quilts, but you feel stuck about how to begin, you are also in the right place if you have tried free motion quilting in the past, but never made it very far, right? Either it didn't look the way you wanted it to, or you got stuck because something was going on with your machine, or you just weren't sure how to develop those skills. You are in the right place. You are also in the right place, as I have already been asked, if you want to know more about Free Motion Quilting Academy. Maybe you've heard about it from a friend. Maybe you've seen me talk about the class before, but the timing wasn't right for you. We are definitely going to cover that at the end of our time together. After all, it is one of my very favorite things to talk about. Okay. There are 87 of you live right now, and that is incredible. Thank you so much for being here. We have so many states and multiple countries represented. What an absolute honor. Now, as we get started, there's something I want you to hold in your mind, right? Because hope is an excellent antidote to fear. All right. And so I would love for you to share in the chat with me and with your fellow rock stars. What is your quilting dream? Right? Maybe it's a specific quilting plan or a specific motif, or maybe you have a very special quilt top that you would really like to quilt yourself. You don't want to send it out to the long arm, or you really want to do it start to finish, but you know you don't have the skills for that yet. Maybe there's a particular motif like meanders. I want you to share a little bit about like what is your particular dream that you're like, if I could snap my fingers and have the free motion quilting skills to do this, I would be so happy. Right? I've been sharing the same example for a really long time, and I am so sorry to tell you that the example is still the same. My 100 days, 100 blocks from 2019. I am closer still than I was last time I shared about this. That's my free motion quilting dream. I want to be able to do something really cool on that quilt when I finish it, right? We never stop dreaming, no matter how much we develop our skills, right? Man, my light just totally changed. This is going to be interesting. It might get dark on me. I'll turn some lights on so that I don't end up in shadow by the end of this. Peggy, that is a fabulous question, and I will make sure that I answer it. Susie says, my dream is to create art that is also functional as a quilt. I love that, Susie. Lisa says, I want to learn to do a quilt from start to finish. Roxanne says, I want to do beautiful feathers. Lori also wants to do feathers. Feathers are fabulous. I completely support this. Um, Pat says, I want to just do it and not think so much about it. I love that, Pat. Practice makes progress. Deborah says, I need time to practice. Jenny says, I'd love to learn how to free motion quilt feathers. Tuesday says to do more than just meandering or wave quilting. We can solve that problem, Tuesday. That is solvable. Patty says, I just want to meander. I just want to be able to finish stuff with a meander. Ava says, I want to be able to do some paw prints, some musical motifs. I love this creativity. Greer says, I want to do a queen size wedding quilt with initials in the middle of all the blocks. I love that. That's so specific. Fantastic. Karen says, I'm good at meandering, but that's it. I freeze when I try to do feathering or anything fancy. Blue Dog Dreaming says, I've started making some art quilts and would love to be able to quilt something other than straight lines. Robin says, my free motion quilting dream is to do smooth designs and loops without wonky zigs and zags. Also very solvable. Love this. Janice says, I want to create dragons and other nerdy, geeky patterns. Janice, I'm in. That sounds amazing. Sidebar, completely unrelated. I just finished reading Would Women Were Dragons at the recommendation of a friend, and it was so good. So if you haven't read it, you may want to check it out. It might be your speed if you like dragons. Karen says flowers. Diana says just to quilt my own quilt. Pam says, I want to overcome fear of my long arm. I had to cut off quilts from my previous long arm. We are not cutting quilts off. No, 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 no. You're going to finish them. And it's going to be amazing. Juliet says smooth curves. Becky says, I want a free motion quilt in general. Elizabeth says, I want to learn ruler work. Well, we're talking mostly about free motion quilting tonight, Elizabeth, but I can help with the ruler work too. Melissa says individualized quilting based on the block design. Yes. Amy says to quilt the last quilt top my grandmother piece. Oh, Amy, what a treasure. Thelma says, I want to quilt from start to finish. And Kimberly says, I am new to long arm quilting and I'm excited to begin this journey. Kimberly, I'm so excited. Steven says, I just want to quilt my own quilts too. Madonna says, I want to do something beyond the meander. I love these dreams. Hold that dream at the front of your mind as we go along tonight. All right. We're going to cover just a few little baby steps along the journey to these dreams coming true. But I can tell you every single one of these dreams is possible. And it is possible more quickly than you think it is. Right. All right. You can and you will be a free motion quilting rock star. Making a decision to do something and then starting to act upon that decision is the hardest part. And I have great news. You have already done that because you made the decision to be here and you showed up, right? Francie says, all of you are in the right place. Listen, Francie is a whole expert on this. Francie has been around here for a long time. She knows what's up. Take her advice. Oh, I love that. You can and will be a free motion quilting rock star. Every single one of these dreams is achievable. All right. And if you've got a little voice in your head telling you otherwise right now, we're going to talk about that before the night is up. All right. So today we are going to tackle how to quilt pain-free. All right. If you've ever tried to free motion quilt before and you've ended up with a sore neck and shoulders, we're going to talk about how you can prevent that going forward. All right. We're going to talk about how to have invisible stops and starts. This is one of those things that every time I talk about it, folks are like, no one has ever showed me this trick before, right? And it's such an important key skill. It's a little skill, but it's a key skill if you're going to be free motion quilting. So we're going to make sure that you know how to do that, maybe even before you actually learn how to free motion quilt. All right. We're setting you up for success. Okay. You're not going to end up with a quilt covered in thread tails that you don't know what to do with. Then we're going to talk about how to think like a rock star. All right. And then at the end of our time together, I'm going to talk about, oh, hello, son. I thought I heard someone behind me. Are you saying goodnight?
Yes.
Yes, I love you very much. You did sneak up here. All right, go back down now. This is the advantage and disadvantage of teaching from home, right? Give me a quick hug and then head back home or head back down. Well, Jim beat you to it. Mwah. All right, I love you. Okay, listen, it's bedtime. 5, 4, 3, 2. It's real life, y'all. This is the other really important thing you need to know about String and Story. We are real people who do real life here. And sometimes I got to say goodnight to my kids in the middle of a master class. You know what I mean? So We are going to talk about how to quilt pain-free, how to have invisible stops and starts, how to think like a rock star. And then I'm going to share with you how you can take those next steps to truly fulfill your free motion quilting rock star destiny. All right. Susie said it super well. It's a promise that you can do this. If you are here and you can draw a stick figure or you can write your own name, you can learn how to free motion quilt. All right. Diana, thank you. Aren't they cute, Melissa? They're absolutely adorable. I think I'll keep them. All right, so first up, pain-free quilting. This is another thing. I know I really harped on the invisible starts and stops, but this is another thing that when I teach it, it feels obvious after the fact, right? But it's not something that gets talked about a whole lot. All right. And that is the importance of ergonomic posture and a proper quilting setup and how vital they are to a pain free quilting experience, right? Right now, y'all are sitting on a dining room table, right? It was actually my parents' dining room table when they were newlyweds. And it has lived several lives and it is on its kind of second round of living a life as being my sewing table. Um, and what is challenging to see right now, and I'm not going to move the camera around a whole lot, but this table comes up really high on my body, right? It comes up to like my sternum, right? So nearly up to my chest because it's designed for eating, right? And if I were using this actually as an eating table, my chair would be even lower, and this table would be even higher. So you got to think about things like getting the soup to your mouth, right? But I'm not using this as a dining room table. I'm using it as a sewing table. And when I'm sitting here, if I am trying to work at my sewing machine is really high compared to my body, and that can begin to cause a lot of pain. So let's talk about what we need to think about in order to have healthy posture. Okay. The first thing is that table height and your chair height relative to your table height. All right. You want your table to come to the bottom of your rib cage. I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide. Fear not. But you want your table to come to the bottom of your rib cage because if you turn to the side and put your elbow at your waist and bend your arm, that's about where your arm is going to form a right angle. And when our arms are at right angles, we're able to move our quilt around using the largest muscle groups possible. If our arms are up here like this and we're moving our quilt around, notice my shoulders immediately go up. I'm pinching my neck and I'm having to use tiny little muscles in my hands to control a big, heavy quilt, right? I want to be able to drop all of that down and be up over my work. All right. I also want to think about a stacked body. Okay. Here's what I mean by that. So I've got a right angle at my arm, like we just talked about. And then I also want to have a right angle at my legs. So if you have to, and I have to do this at the shop, you have to raise your chair up pretty high to get up over something. And I have to do it even more when I'm at home. Sometimes I need to put a box under my feet so that my feet can rest and be nice and smooth. All right. And have that nice, even and easy right angle and not be stretched out, not be cramped up. All right. From there, I want you to think about how you're sitting, right? I'm going to show you this picture while I'm doing this. We often sit, if you look at this picture on the right, kind of back on our tailbones, we collapse our abdomen, our shoulders roll forward, right? Just think of the classic like teenager who's on their phone, right? Or grown up who's on their phone. This is, a lot of humans now, right? But if you then think about what you know about the human pelvis, you did not know we were getting into biology. Bear with me. Your hip bones, right, um, are the top of your pelvis. But down at the bottom of your pelvis, there's also little nubs of bone, right? Ladies who are birthing folks, these are the bones your kid has to pass through. People who are birthing folks, these are the bones your kid has to pass through in order to be born, right? They are called your ischial tuberosities or your sit bones, right? If you look at this picture on the left, I'm actually sitting up over my pelvis, right? It's sitting down like this instead of being rocked back onto my tailbone, right? Exactly. Sit bones for cycling, Susie, just like that. They're made for that. They're literally made to brace your body. And they're designed so that you're not going to be restricting circulation and all these things, right? So we want to sit up over those bones and then we want to stack our body over our pelvis. So we want our hips to be underneath our shoulders, right? Our shoulders over our hips and our head over our shoulders. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes, right? All nice and up tall. If we sit down the way I am in this right-handed photo, it's going to cause a lot of strain down the back of the neck. And again, we're not going to be able to use our core to move that quilt. So we're going to be using tiny little muscles in our hands and our forearms. And if you're like me and you've got any kind of developing joint issues, maybe you have a touch of arthritis, maybe you have an old injury, that's going to start to be a problem really, really fast. Okay. So we want to sit up over our work with that table low enough. We want to stack our body tall so that we can engage our core muscles. There's a lot of strength in our core muscles. When we engage that core and we're sitting up, we can use larger muscles like our biceps, our triceps, our delts at the top of our back, right? These are muscles that are going to fatigue less quickly and are less prone to injury. All right. And then the final piece we want to think about is we want to think about proper lighting, right? The light that I just turned on that I have over to the side here, you can get a little bit of an idea of how bright it is, right? It's my personal favorite. It's the daylight slimline. But as we age, our eyes need an enormous percentage more light in order to be able to see just as well. So you'll notice in this photo on the left, I have a clear line of sight down to what I'm quilting. But if I don't have good light, it's going to be hard for me to see those little stitches that I'm making, right? And see where I'm going. And having light is going to be a key part of being able to maintain this posture. All right. Greer says, what is a good ergonomic lifting sitting pillow? My chair is a little low. Ooh, that's a really good question. I have not used a sitting pillow, but I bet you could Google that and find a really good recommendation. You're probably going to want something that's a little bit of a wedge that lifts up, probably something that's got a little bit of a gap for your tailbone, right? You've got nerves and blood vessels and things that run along your tailbone that you don't want to be pinching those, right? We don't want to restrict blood flow. All right. So sitting up over things. And listen, let me tell you, I told you learn more about me as we go through this. I became really passionate about this about 5 years ago now because I long arm with one hand. Okay. So I have horrible astigmatism. I have quite bad eyesight. My depth perception is not phenomenal. So when I long arm, I drive my long arm with my right arm. I'm right dominant. And I put my left hand on the quilt. It gives me that little bit of kind of biofeedback to have a sense of where I am in the universe, right? But I was doing it. If I turn sideways, you might be able to see this. I wasn't long arming like this, right? I was long arming like this, right? I was rolling the shoulder forward. I was scrunching my abdomen down. I was extending my neck because I was trying to get down close to what I was doing. And I'm doing this motion over and over again as I long arm, right? So I go to the chiropractor. I spend a lot of time at the chiropractor. It's just how I am structured as a human. And he says, I have such an odd question for you. So I'm like, my shoulder's really bothering me, my elbow's really bothering me. Like, and for context, at the time that this happened, I'm about 5'6", and I weighed maybe 130 pounds, right? I was a tiny, tiny little thing, right? I'm a small human. I have a tiny frame. It is what it is. And he goes, I have such an odd question for you. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, do you play rugby? And I look at him and he looks at me and then I look down at me and then I look at him and I was like, come again? He goes, do you play rugby? And I was like, no, I would die. Like they would actually crush me. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, I can't figure out what's going on with your shoulder. He says, what do you do with that right arm? And I fumble around for a minute trying to think about what he could be talking about. And I go, you know what I do? I said, I'm a quilter. And he goes, a what now? He understands now. He didn't know at the time. It's okay. I said, I'm a quilter. And I said, I long arm quilt. And so I explained to him about long arming and whatever. And he goes, yeah, we're going to need to have a conversation about your posture. And I said, oh, okay. Like, pray tell. And he says, I have never seen this injury on someone who's not either a football player or rugby player or a baseball player because it basically was the repetitive motion injury of throwing over and over and over again. And I was wrecking my shoulder. And so he began to teach me about this, and it's changed my life. So I'm super passionate about sharing it, right? Because if we're going to be finishing our own quilt, some of the quilts we talked about queen size quilts already tonight. It's a big quilt. It's going to take some time, right? And so we need to be able to work through without hurting our bodies. All right. So Couple of more reminders with that. Use the largest muscle group possible for all tasks, right? So engaging things like biceps, triceps, deltoids, core, instead of making use of the tiny little muscles in our fingers, right? When we're quilting, we want to have nice flat hands. See how my hands are in this picture? And we're guiding them around. We're not gripping. We're not doing anything that's going to be straining those itty bitty muscles. You also want to stretch and hydrate frequently, right? Think of this um, a bit like a calisthenics workout, right? Think of this a little bit like Pilates, right? It builds on itself. You may not feel the burn at first, but you're going to feel it. And so we want to take care of our bodies as we go along. For those of you who are brand new quilters, I really recommend quilting in 15 to 20-minute segments at a time, and then actually getting up, drinking some water. By the way, everyone drink some water. Do a little stretch, maybe take the dog for a little 3-minute walk, right? And then you can come back and take a deep breath and go again. All right. Melissa says, any recommendations for a type of chair to use for sewing and quilting? I use the Aero hydraulic chair. And if you're interested in that, I actually have an affiliate coupon with them. That's what I'm sitting in now. I love them. They've got great back support. There's a little like cubby in the seat, which is kind of fun. And it has a really great height range. So it goes quite low and also quite high. My second favorite chair is I have one of those saddle stools that kind of forces you to sit forward. It's got basically like a big bike seat on the top of it. I like that one a lot. The challenge with that one is, we're human. So at some point, our body's going to get tired, especially if you're, like most people, that you're not necessarily used to sitting up that way all the time. You're going to get tired. And the disadvantage of the saddle stool is that there's not a backrest, right? So you don't have an option except to really just collapse and slump when you get tired. What I like about these Aero chairs is that if I'm quilting and I get tired, I need to take a minute, I can lean back and rest, catch my breath, kind of go right back in, right? So I fatigue a little bit more slowly in these chairs. But I have used and loved both for a long time. Yeah. Francie says, my great grandmother sewed for people. She sat humped over and had quite the spinal problem when she got old, and it was very painful. Yes, we want to avoid that. Robin, the lamp is the Daylight Slimline. It is listed in our shop for what that's worth. I think we have one listed in stock. If not, we can get some on order for sure. Susan says, I got tendinitis on my second quilt. Oh no. Oh no. Melissa, for the chair, send me an email. hello@stringandstory.com and I'll send you a link. Yep. That's the easiest way to do that. Love it. Any other questions about posture, ergonomics, right? This is something, get creative with this. Like I said, at home, at the shop, I have nice Aero furniture, right? Like I have sewing furniture at the shop. They have graciously outfitted us to make sure that, I have what I need to make lots of quilts and to help you make lots of quilts. At home, I'm on a dining room table, right? Just like many of y'all. And I love that because I get to try things out of like, does this solve this problem? How can we achieve good ergonomics when we're working, with regular furniture? Yep. Terry says, I have vision problems and a great chiropractor froze my shoulder and that was so bad. Yeah, we want to prevent that for sure. That's the other thing. And if you're learning free motion quilting with me, you're going to hear me get on a soapbox about social media quite often. I love social media. I think it's super fun. I especially love Instagram. I love making videos for y'all. But here's the thing about videos on social media. It's not necessarily that they're untrue. It's that they are consistently a partial truth. And here's what I mean by that. You're probably never going to see how tired a quilter is after they've been quilting for a really long stretch, right? We don't necessarily have a framework for that of like, oh, the physical toll this can take. You may not necessarily see, especially like if I'm quilting on my domestic machine, how often I stop and reposition my hands or stop and drink some water or stop and just breathe for a second, right? Those things don't make for sexy social media videos. That's one of my things that I love about teaching live. A few of y'all are in the FMQ challenge this week, and y'all have gotten to see me do all those things, right? Because we all pause, we all stretch, we all drink water, we all take breaks, we all get tired, just like we all have thread breaks, we all have tension problems, all of those things. But they don't always get shown, right? And so I love being able to talk about these things so that we can prevent things like injuries, right? Valerie says, my chair rolls backwards when I try to free motion quilt on the hardwood floor. Maybe I should get a piece of carpet under it. I would definitely do that. Just get a rug. Yeah, just go get an inexpensive rug that you toss down when you're quilting just to give a little bit of friction underneath there. That's great. I love that. Minnesota in the house. I love it. By the way, everything I've just gone over is on our lovely fill in the blanks page. There is a replay of this, so if you didn't catch them as I'm going along, fear not. All is well. All right, time is flying. I have to move along. I could tell stories and talk about this with y'all talk about this with y'all all night long. But let's talk about invisible starts and stops. All right. If you've ever seen quilts with what appear to be invisible starts and stops, then the quilter has buried their threads. Burying threads means to run the tails into the batting of the quilt in order to secure the stitches, okay? So you can see on this lovely placemat, this is actually a sample from Ruler Quilting Academy. This corner here, I don't know if y'all can actually see my mouse, but where that blue square comes down, right, and there's the 2-star points. If you look carefully, you may be able to see that's where lots of threads came together, right? And I buried the end of those. So it looks like, poof, this quilting just kind of appeared on the quilt, right? It didn't. I stitched it just like a normal human, but then I buried the threads, okay? So here's how we do that, all right? When you begin quilting, you're gonna wanna hold your top thread, all right? Lower your needle, raise your needle. I'm pressing a button. You might also be turning your wheel, right? And when that needle comes back up, ideally, it should have caught the bobbin thread, and you can give a little tug and bring that bobbin thread to the top. Now, if you use your automatic thread cutter on your machine, it might be a very short little baby tail, and you might need to get some tweezers to grab it, right? But then you have your top and bobbin threads on the top of your quilt, all right? You can't see the mouse. That's okay. You get the idea. All right, so then you have both those threads, and I just hold them off to the side as I begin quilting, right? After I've quilted for a bit, I pause, right? This is one of those lovely pauses. I can give my body a break by burying some threads. And if I want to make sure this is extra secure, I'm going to take those 2 thread tails and I'm going to tie a little knot, right? And make sure the knot lands right down at the surface of the quilt, okay? Next, I need a hand sewing needle. Now, this could be a self-threading needle, or what I've done here is you'll see in my left hand, I'm just holding the needle, and coming from that needle, I have a little piece of thread that I've tied a knot in, right? And it just makes like a little loop of thread at the end, coming out of this needle. And instead of threading my thread tails through the needle, I simply pass them through this little lasso of thread. It's way easier, a lot easier to see. We already talked about the eyesight thing, right? From there, I'm going to take the tip of the needle and I'm going to put it into the quilt right where those thread tails are coming out. All right. And I'm going to slide it just into the batting. I put my hand underneath, and if I stab myself with the needle, I've gone too far. Right? You just want the needle to go into the batting, right? For about a needle's length. And then you're going to rock it back up and pull it through. And when you pull it through, you're going to give a little tug so that you can pull that lasso with its knot as well as those thread tails all the way through that section of batting and over to the other side. Okay. From there, you can set the needle and the lasso to the side, and you're going to trim those thread tails right at the surface of the quilt. Give a little massage to it, and they'll vanish right down into that batting. And now you have an invisible start and stop, and you've secured your thread tails, okay? So for free motion quilting, this is what I do. Instead of doing a back stitch to secure my stitches, I just start right away, and then I can bury my thread tails in order to secure my stitching. All right? Peggy says, if you ever be sure to put a piece of rubber under your foot pedal so you don't get static shocks. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. It'll also help your foot pedal from rolling away or sliding away as well. Steven says, I use an old art table from school, a little higher than a dining room table, and I'm using a stool. We'll see how that works. That sounds like a good setup to try. Love that, Steven. All right. Any questions about burying threads? Kathy says, do you ever use the knotting feature on a machine? So the knotting feature on a machine just means it takes a couple of stitches in place. If I'm using, like if I'm guest teaching and the machine like has that setting on, I will use it. But I do not I do not turn it on my machine. I just bury my threads. Terry, I'm chuckling so hard. Terry says, "Oh, heck no, no hand sewing. I'll have to backstitch." I have great news for you. There are award-winning quilters who prefer to backstitch. And that was the next thing I was going to mention. So I'm glad you brought it up. If you look at this and you have Terry's reaction, you're like, I really don't want to get a hand sewing needle involved in this process. That's okay. You can backstitch a few stitches and right there in place and then just trim. All right. Both are a-okay. All right. Valerie says, do you bury threads as you go or all at once at the end? I try to bury them as I go because I do not enjoy it either. Terry, I relate to this no hand sewing thing. It's not my favorite activity, but I quilt for other people. So you're allergic to hand sewing needles. So yeah, don't do that. Just backstitch, Terry. So yes, I like to do it as I go and just get it over with. Yep. Yes, and if your hands cannot do this, Peggy, backstitch. Love that. This is another really excellent lesson about being a free motion quilting rock star. I'm going to make suggestions based on my best practices and what some of the quilting rock stars do. You are always invited to do exactly what Terry says and says, I have something different that works better for me. Thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Hello, Jeanette. Good to see you. All right, and then this quilt had a frillion and one Instaberry. And yeah, look, all those starts and stops look so wonderfully invisible because of this method. All right. I don't usually not mind, Melissa. I'm too lazy. I'm like, it'll hold, it's fine. Once in a while, but usually just bury them. All right. Finally, let's talk about managing your mindset. This is the other kind of elephant in the room when folks are learning how to free motion quilt for the first time. And that's the little voice that I mentioned at the beginning of, I said, you can and will be a free motion quilting rock star. And it's quite likely that you had a little voice in the back of your head that went, yeah, right. Now, you have some rock stars here with you. You've got Francie and others who immediately, and Maureen and others who immediately popped in and said, you can do this. You can do this. You absolutely can, right? Countering that voice. But that little voice that went, yeah, right. We have a name for it. Lots of folks call it your inner critic. Around here, we call it your IMG, your inner mean grump. Now, the upside of your inner mean grump is that it keeps you alive. It's actually a really important part of your brain. It is a deep part of your brain. This is the part of your brain that says, don't touch the hot stove, do run from tigers, right? Or, don't mess with tigers. I don't actually know if it's advisable to run from tigers, but you get the idea, right? It is the part of your brain that is very suspicious of change, very suspicious of new things. And it's literally its job that when something new or unfamiliar pops up, it's supposed to go, no, that might kill us. So we're going to not, thank you very much. Right? It's self-preservation. Here's the downside. Because it is a very old part of your brain, it knows wise things like fire will burn you and tigers will kill you. It doesn't know the difference between free motion quilting and the tiger. Okay? It just labels all new things as potentially deadly. All right? That's why if you think about when kids go back to school, right? This is what's going on in my house right now. My kids just started back to school. Kids start back to school, they're in a new class with a new teacher, probably have a new classroom, maybe even a whole new school, new classmates, they're learning new lessons, there's a new routine, right? I don't know about y'all's kids, grandkids, other young folks in your life, but at my house, I can bet that for at least the first 2 to 3 weeks of school, when we get home from the bus, someone is going to have an all-out meltdown. And they're having an all-out meltdown because things feel new and scary and unfamiliar, and their brain thinks they're dying, right? Their brain is so tired from having to assess threats all day long that it feels really overwhelming. So what do we do when our brain can't tell the difference between learning how to free motion quilt and a hungry tiger, right? And there's a few things that we can do. The first thing that you're already doing a great job at is you're surrounding yourself by rock stars, okay? So actually starting at the right side of this slide, one of my very favorite ways to counter my inner mean grump is to have an amazing community that can speak something truer can speak something more encouraging that can reassure us of our safety, right? Our negative self-talk often spirals, um, and we're conditioned to be embarrassed about it, right? So that, Terry, I love this. This wee bit of vulnerability of that's exactly what my little voice said. Or not exactly what my little voice said, but we'll go with that, right? Of yeah, my little voice absolutely had something to say, right? So that we can immediately say, "You've got this," right? It's new. It might feel scary. You might need a little bit of reassuring vodka. Listen, I'm a big fan of like a couple of sips of wine before you free motion quilt if that's what's going to help loosen you up. Or put on your favorite song or make a cup of tea, right? You'll also want to practice your own personal pep talk. Remind yourself of all the times that you learned something new. I mentioned at the beginning of our time together, if you can write your name, you can learn to free motion quilt. Okay. And that's because free motion quilting is just like learning the alphabet. It is a series of repeated shapes that are put together in different ways in order to make letters. And then those letters are put together to make words, right? And if you just put yourself back in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, when we were all learning so much about reading and writing, right? It was a ton of information, but our brain was able to sort those patterns. We were able to develop that hand eye coordination of here's how to make that tall straight line from the solid line to the solid line. Here's how we make the short one from the dotted line to the solid line. Here's how we make the hump of an N that starts at the bottom solid line, touches that dotted line and comes back down. Can you tell I'm the child of an elementary school teacher? Listen, it's deep in my bones, right? And to say, I've learned hard things before, I've learned new things before. I'm uncomfortable right now, but it's going to be all right. I can do hard things. The other or the third really important thing to calm your inner mean grump is information. This is my job, right? This is what I mean, I love doing all these other things too. Don't get me wrong. I will pep talk you in a heartbeat if your inner mean grump is being loud. I will make sure that you are in community with these rock stars in a heartbeat if that's what's going to help calm your inner mean grump down. But what I specialize in is information, right? We've already discussed a couple of really important solutions to problems that may crop up along your free motion quilting journey, right? You start quilting, you're experiencing pain, and your brain goes, "See, I told you it hurts. That means it's going to kill you," right? No, but it is preventable to be quilting with discomfort. We want to be able to quilt pain free. So we've given you some information so that you can start your quilting journey more informed about that, right? We then talked about, well, I'm trying to quilt this whole thing, but I'm ending up with threads everywhere. What do I do with those? Right? We talked about how to have those clean and visible starts and stops, right? And as you continue to learn with me, trust me, we are just getting started on all the bits of information and tidbits that I have to share with you to help show you step by step how to calm that inner mean grump and how to realize that in fact you are a whole free motion quilting rock star. All right. Jan, you are so kind. Maureen, I made a doodler out of you. I feel like I should sing a song about that. Like I should sing that song from Mulan. Be a doodler, draw the feathers and make them pretty. You didn't sign up for me to parody. I'm sorry. That was a bonus. I love it, Maureen. Let's get a little closer to seeing Maureen's graduation project. All right. So remember, no matter what your inner mean grump says, and no matter what terrible parodies I plague you with, you can and will be a free motion quilting rock star. All right. I want you to go back to that dream that we had at the beginning. And Maureen and Francie and others have already reassured you that all of those dreams are achievable. All right. And you shared with me, you shared a plan, a project, a motif that you want to do yourself. And as I mentioned, it's possible just naming that dream made you feel a little bit nervous, right? But hopefully the information and encouragement from today has you feeling a little bit more excited about this journey ahead. Fun fact, did you know that the human body can't actually tell the difference between excitement and anxiety? We feel them the same. Things like sweaty palms, a palpitating heart, that butterflies in your stomach, right? We feel the same sensations whether we're excited or we're nervous. And I hope that our time together today has helped reframe some of those sensations that you're feeling more excited about what's to come and going, how do I keep going? Right? How do I keep going? Terry, if you get an inner mean grump tattoo, you have to send me a picture. It would make my entire life. my entire life. I would love it. Ruthie says, lots of practice sandwiches and deep breaths. I could not sew curves at all, and now I do feathers. Maureen says, if you can do this, if I can do this, so can you. All right. So let's talk about what exactly you can do to become a free motion quilting rock star. You can take to the Googles. There's a lot of information on Google. I'm not going to downplay that. But if you've had fun here tonight, and if you've enjoyed connecting with these rock stars, and if you've enjoyed and found helpful the information that I've shared with you, I would really like to keep this conversation going. I would really love to be your free motion quilting teacher and help that free motion quilting dream come true, and then to celebrate with you when it does. And in fact, some of the pictures I'm about to show you are a little bit of a sneak peek of the celebration we're having on Saturday for some of these rock stars that are graduating. So if that's you, if you're like, yes, please, this sounds fabulous, I would love to invite you to Free Motion Quilting Academy. I gave it away at the beginning of our time together that this was coming because I'm passionate about it. And we have just touched the surface of all the fun and funny things that are part of learning to finish your own quilt. And Maureen, I'm inclined to agree with you, even though I know I'm biased. Maureen says, oh, hold on. Maureen says, this is the best course ever. He says, I use a straight serpentine stitch with a regular sewing foot on machine. 70 years of sewing, I've never dropped my feed dogs. Peggy, thank you for reminding me. Peggy asked at the beginning, do we have to drop our feed dogs? What if we're scared they won't come back up? Peggy, I don't drop my feed dogs. We talked a lot more about that in the first lessons of Free Motion Quilting Academy. But I find that I get better tension, and I don't like having to remember to put them back up. So Peggy, I'm with you. Thank you for reminding me to answer that question. So, Free Motion Quilting Academy is a proven method. Inside the academy, we build on the lessons from today's masterclass, just the very tip of the iceberg, with 12 weeks of step-by-step video lessons designed to help you grow from a nervous beginner free motion quilter to a confident intermediate free motion quilter, a whole free motion quilting rock star, if you will. Maureen, look at your quilt. Maureen says, I loved everything about the FMQ Academy. At 69, I was a little doubtful I could learn how to free motion quilt. But when I found Holly Ann's intro to FMQ, I decided I had to try. Holly Ann's teaching style and videos are fantastic. Although the course is 12 weeks long, there's no pressure to finish within that time period. Life sometimes gets in the way, and it's so very nice to have one less pressure. I love being able to go back to the course over and over again for a refresher of any motifs. Another wonderful part of this course is being able to post questions and be in contact with others in the course. There's so much encouragement within the group. Holly Ann, thank you for this fantastic course. I hope one day I can pop into your shop and meet you in person. Please do. This will go down as one of the very best Christmas gifts my 6 children have given me. Maureen, I'll get to gush about this all over again on Saturday, but your whole cloth is incredible. I love it. So, for context, at the end of Free Motion Quilting Academy, we have a graduation ceremony, and there are 2 projects that Rockstars complete. One is a sampler of all the motifs I teach in the course, and one is a creative project, and it's a whole cloth. It's fat quarter size. This is not pieced. All the color and shape and movement and texture that you're seeing on this quilt, Maureen quilted with thread. That's all free motion quilting, and it looks incredible. Incredible. So let's break down what's in Free Motion Quilting Academy. So Free Motion Quilting Academy is an enormous value. You have 6 professionally recorded video units teaching you all the ins and outs of free motion quilting, from setup to how to stitch over 24 motifs. Then I have a bonus unit about quilting plans. That's all about deciding what to quilt where, right? We have a huge course workbook full of resources and doodle page. We have an exclusive online community where I do live video Q&A. So if you've enjoyed this format where you can ask questions and I can talk back to you, we do that throughout the course, and you have lifetime access to all of the above. So that's what Maureen was referencing when the course is 12 weeks long, but there's no pressure to finish within that time period. And that's because you have lifetime access. So if you're working through at your own pace, then you can always graduate with a future cohort. All right. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. This is the enrollment link. You'll notice over on the right-hand side, our early bird tuition, which is valid through Sunday. So for just a few days, is $297 full pay or 3 payments of $99. And the course kicks off at the end of the month. All right. Let me tell you a little bit more about it though. So let's take a peek. Yes, Lisa, it's on Kajabi, and don't worry, we're going to solve your login problems. I know you've been having some issues from intro. Just let me know when you're better. We're going to get it fixed. No worries. I already have a plan. Let's take a quick peek at the unit. So in unit 0 is all about introduction and orientation. How the heck does this thing work? How do I watch the videos? How do I connect with my fellow rock stars? What supplies do I need, right? Unit 1 is our foundational skills and motifs. Inside of this, we talk about getting your machine set up for quilting. We talk about making sure your tension is set so you get beautiful stitches. And we do our first 4 motifs. Units 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are more motifs. It's a whole toolbox of maybe not necessarily all of the motifs you could ever want, but certainly all of the shapes that you could ever want. And you're going to be well set up to learn beyond this. A couple of common questions that I get down here at the bottom. Ruler work is not part of this course. We have Ruler Quilting Academy that teaches ruler work. And this is for both long arm and domestic machines. Okay. So the course is taught on that Juki that you saw in a couple of pictures. I also quilt on a long arm. We have had rock stars graduate from this class on everything from a treadle sewing machine to a Singer featherweight up to the biggest long arm you can imagine and everything in between. All right. I see your questions. Fear not. Some of them I'm about to answer, and then the rest of them I will catch. All right. How does the online community work? So the online community is also hosted inside Kajabi, which is what we use for our course platform. So Blue Dog Dreaming, you don't need to worry about Facebook. Our community is now inside of Kajabi, and we use this same platform that I'm using now to stream to YouTube. We use for the live Q&A session. So it's a lot like watching a YouTube video, but in a private viewing space. And you can ask questions ahead of time if you will not be able to join us live. You can also just type questions into the group and get answers that way. All right. So I'm live every other week or so throughout the course. I don't remember the exact count for this cohort, but the goal is that you never feel stuck, right? That you always can get a hold of me or a fellow rock star or a member of Team Rockstar and get your questions answered. Our live Q&As are Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, but there is a replay available right away. I know that time doesn't work for everyone. That's why we allow you to ask questions prior to the live stream. So when you catch the replay, your questions are already answered, okay? Replays are shared both into our Q&A vault and are available via the same link that you'll use to tune in live, all right? What does lifetime access mean? We've made some reference to this already of, okay, well, the course is 12 weeks, but you don't have to finish in that time. What does that mean? It means that I know some folks like structure. They like a schedule. They like to know what to do, when, and be able to follow that schedule. And so going through an exactly 12 weeks means that they have the structure that they need. I also know there's some folks that there's a lot of life going on, and you're going to want to be able to do a little bit here and a little bit there, and go through at your own pace. And you're able to take as long as you would like to work through the class without paying extra. That's really, really important, right? You never have to re-enroll. Once you're in, you're in. You can always go back and rewatch the videos and take all the time you need to graduate without paying extra. When I talk about a cohort, it just talks about folks who enrolled together and then went through a 12-week period. So you'll see on some of the slides I'm about to show you of other rock stars, they make reference to their cohort of when they enrolled, all right? But you can graduate at any point, okay? Let's see, I see a couple of questions. Is it like an Etch-a-Sketch? What do you mean, Terry? I wanna make sure that I understand the question. Susan says, how can I best maintain consistent stitch size? I have a stitch regulator on my Bernina, but I find it actually hinders my movement and fluidity. I would take the BSR off. Bernina doesn't like it when I say that, but that's what I would recommend. And I would use the speed slider on your machine instead to find the right pace for you. Great question. Full tuition for the class after Sunday, Melissa, is $327 or 3 payments of $112. Great question. Yep. Maureen says, I'm an example of not finishing in 12 weeks. Traveling kept me from graduating in April. So Maureen enrolled last winter and is now graduating. Love that. Free motion quilting generally is one continuous line of stitching, but you definitely pause and reposition your hands. Yeah. Susie says, love the extra time to practice and graduate in the next cohort. I needed it. Most rock stars take at least 2 cohorts to graduate. Yep. Gail is local to me. I got to take this picture for her graduation, which makes me really happy. Gail says, I'm so happy to graduate. It's taken me almost a year to finish, and that's okay. I was in the fall 2022 cohort. For the record, she got distracted with Ruler Quilting Academy partway through, so she's already graduated from that one. The lifetime access was one of the big benefits for me, as I knew I wouldn't have time in my schedule to finish in 12 weeks. Gail does a lot of really cool traveling too. The videos are wonderful, and since I can go back to them at any time, I will see the latest version of videos with any updates. Some of y'all who have been part of FMQA for a while, you have seen some really cool updates happen to the class, right? I realized after I had my sampler on my long arm that I'd never watched the feathers videos, so I stepped back, watched them, practiced on my whiteboard, and jumped in. Now I love doing feathers. Holly Ann's You Can Do This encouragement and cheerleading helped me figure out what to do for my whole cloth, as well as get my sampler put together on the long arm and finished. And I love this picture, Gail. So Gail lived in Maui for a while, and this is a photo that she took. And the border that she put around her whole cloth is all fabrics from when she and her mother went to Maui on various trips, which I just think is so special. Amy says, I'm from the fall 2020 cohort. I still haven't graduated, but I am doing FMQ. Maureen says, this course is a great bargain. Maureen, I love that you bring that up, because the other thing that I do is I long arm for customers, right? We have a $50 minimum at the shop. So even if you just brought me tiny little baby quilts to long arm for you, it would only take 6 of them before you could have paid for Free Motion Quilting Academy. Most quilts that I quilt come in around $150 to $200 by the time I long arm them for a simple design, right? That's for really basic design. So I always love to do a little bit of that long arm math out, because what you could spend to have 1, 2, or 3 quilts long armed is what you could invest to be able to finish most, if not all, of your quilts yourself. And I say most because I know that there are rock stars who have graduated from FMQA that they still go, you know what, I send out the really big quilts. I don't like to do the wrestling, but I love being able to do my smaller ones myself, right? So Free Motion Quilting Academy allows you to learn free motion quilting from the privacy and comfort of your own home. I don't know about you, but my IMG is never louder than when I feel like someone is over my shoulder judging me, right? You get to be at home in your space, on your machine, in your comfort zone. And if you get frustrated, you can step away and I'll never even know, right? If something doesn't go the way that you planned and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to quietly put that one in the trash. I'll never even know, right? You get to be in your own space, working on your own time, regardless of time zone, etc. All right. It encourages you to start with what you have, keeping supplies as minimal and affordable as possible, rather than jumping straight in and urging you to buy a fancier machine. Listen, if you want a permission slip to buy a fancier machine, I can set you up with that, right? But 99.9% of the time, the machine that you should be learning how to free motion quilt on is the machine that you already have. Once you fall in love with free motion quilting, if a different machine is going to suit your needs, you can always upgrade later. But right now, you don't need that big fancy machine in order to finish your quilts. You need to take the time to practice and build your skills as an FMQ rock star, right? Susie says, I'm quilting 4 to 6 charity quilts each month, and I'm still learning. Susie, you're like getting your money back out of FMQA literally every month. That's incredible. That's incredible. Roxanne says, what long term do you use? Explain that to me, Roxanne. I'm not sure I followed. Free Motion Quilting Academy is ready when you are, regardless of geography or time zone, with on-demand pre-recorded video lessons, right? If you are in Australia and you are 14 hours different from me, I can be sound asleep in my bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you can be up watching me teach you how to quilt paisleys. It's awesome, right? It also means that if you're sound asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning, when I'm doing a Q&A session, you can put your question into the group ahead of time. And when you wake up and you're ready to watch that video, your question's already answered and waiting for you, and you can get back to quilting. All right. What long arm? I have a Handy Quilter Moxie right now. I had a Tin Lizzie in the past. We'll see what I have in the future. Right now, I'm loving Daisy. That's her name. Daisy is my Moxie. Free Motion Quilting Academy offers you ongoing access to the instructor so you never feel alone or stuck, and you can get near real-time help during live stream Q&A sessions. This is really important to me because I have a lot of rock stars who have taken classes, at an event or whatever, and it's a really successful class, but when they get home and they're back on their own machine, they're like, I know she answered this question in class, but I don't remember what the answer was. And you may or may not be able to get a hold of that instructor to get your question answered in a timely manner, right? Free Motion Quilting Academy seeks to really counter that struggle by making sure that these videos are pre-recorded so you can go back to them. You can ask questions in the group and in the Q&A sessions. I want you to feel supported every step of the way. Melissa has a Moxie too. I love it. Let's see. Terry says, what is needed to free motion quilt? Obviously a machine. You're gonna need a hopping foot is the other kind of specialized piece of equipment. Depending on the machine that you have, a hopping foot might be $10. They're not necessarily very expensive. If you have a Bernina, they're gonna be more expensive, obviously. I like to recommend gloves, and then you're gonna need practice sandwiches. So not a whole lot of specialized stuff, which is really cool. Valerie says, what's the biggest size that you free motion quilted on your home machine? I feel like anything larger than a lap size quilt is really hard. I have done a double bed size quilt. I'm trying to think if I've done a queen. I was very fortunate that I did a lot of charity quilting early in my quilting career, and I was actually gifted a long arm pretty early. So my queen size quilts I've done on the long arm. I know I have students who have done king size quilts on a domestic. I will quite comfortably do a large throw quilt. The most recent one was 72 by 72. And then I've done a double as well that was 60 plus by 80 plus. Yeah. So quilts that if I had sent them out, because these were custom quilting jobs, if I'd sent them out for custom quilting, would have been hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Yeah. Let's see. I've made several quilts in 15 years, but never did free motion quilting. I started off with a black 1940s Singer. That's amazing, Peggy. Frank says, my fancy machine will quilt my quilts for me. I tried it on one. That's okay, but found free motion quilting is just as fast and more rewarding. Listen, there's a time and a place for computerized quilting. I am not going to knock it. It can look real cool. Wanda says, I really need to learn to do my own quilting. Thank you for letting me join in. I am so glad you're here, Wanda. Terry says, I have a Viking. So I would check with your local dealer. I wouldn't expect it to break the bank to get this foot. You might even already have it. It may have come with a ruler foot. Vikings tend to be pretty industrial, and those sometimes do. Yeah. Peggy says, I've done twin size quilts on my home sewing machines. Love it. Susie says, I've done a queen on my Bernina 570. So that's the same size Bernina that I have. I have the 590. It just means it can do embroidery. Melissa says, I've quilted a king on my domestic machine, 100 by 115. Melissa, I'm going to pin the blue ribbon on your chest. That's incredible. Amy says, I've done a queen. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And Free Motion Quilting Academy, just like we're seeing in real time right now, connects you with other rock stars in training around the world so you can help and encourage each other, right? Look at how in the last 15 seconds, being able to kind of hive mind, what's the biggest quilt you've quilted on your domestic machine, right? We got a variety of answers and all of them were helpful, right? Awesome. I love the power of the internet. Let me introduce you to Sandra. Sandra says, I love Tack's enthusiasm, support, and teaching style. The supportive environment that is cultivated and the permission to not be perfect. That's very important. It's very important. Practice makes progress. We're not here for practice makes perfect. Practice makes progress. And done is better than perfect. All right. That's when you get to snuggle it, is when it's done. Pat says, I really liked the carefully structured lessons in Kajabi, which allowed me to progress at my own pace and to review lessons when needed. Helene does a great job in her descriptions and demos, and I really appreciated the focus on progress rather than perfection. My IMG needed to be put in its place while working through some of the blocks, since I'm a relative newcomer to long arming as well as free motion quilting. The quilting journey continues. Pat, I love this quilt. It looks phenomenal. And then Joanna says, I love the self-directed nature of the videos and how Holly-Ann shows what she's doing up close on an actual quilt. I'm quilting a large throw in the course, just for context. I'm not teaching you on little practice sandwiches. I'm quilting like a proper quilt, right? I also love that she lets mistakes be what they are. She didn't try to present an illusion of perfection, which allows me to give myself some grace when I made mistakes. In the first couple of lessons, I was having a little tension issue when we were filming, and there are some thread breaks. And I made very specific instructions to my videographer. Please don't edit those out. They're important because they happen to everybody, right? Let's see. I'm glad to learn that I don't have to drop my feed dogs to free motion quilts. Peggy, it changed my life too. I'm so glad that it's helpful. Susie says, any suggestions on needle gumming up on fusible applique? I would make sure that it's fused all the way and not still sticky. The other thing is just keep an eye on it and make sure you clean your needle regularly. Unfortunately, some adhesives can be a little goopy, which is really inconvenient. Blue Dog Dreaming says, how long are the lessons? They're like 5 to 15 minutes in general. When we get into some of the more complex motifs, they go a little bit longer, but we try to keep them bite sized, right? So that you could pretty easily say, I've got half an hour. I'm going to watch a video. I'm going to doodle that motif. I'm going to do a little bit of quilting, right? So that it's really achievable to do a little bit. Anyone else have the issue of the top thread catching in the bobbin when free motion quilting? Interesting. That could be a timing issue. When has your machine had service? Would be my question on that, Susie. Great question though. So, rock stars, all of this to say, I've had such a wonderful time with you tonight. Again, thank you for choosing to spend a valuable hour of your evening with me. I would love to continue spending time together inside of Free Motion Quilting, inside of Free Motion Quilting Academy. And I would love to have you jump in. Well, I can give you the best deal possible. So again, if you jump in before the end of Sunday, we have our early bird pricing of $297 or 3 payments of $99. You can click the link that I just dropped in the chat or head to stringandstory.com/FMQ Academy. Susie, that's really interesting. Did the tension or did the thread catching start after the service? Because it sounds like either there's a timing issue or something's up with the bobbin race. I'd maybe have it peeked at again because it shouldn't be doing that. If you can send me a picture of what's going on, send me an email and I'll see if I can come up with another solution for you before and after. Ooh, interesting. See if you can send me a picture or a video and I'll try to troubleshoot it with you, Susie. This is the other huge part of what I do, as you know, the information part of calming our IMG is doing some troubleshooting, right? Maureen, I love this. Maureen says, this is the best bargain for machine quilting lessons. I appreciate that so much. You are phenomenal, Rockstar, and I'm so excited that you were here. Y'all, I'm going to stick around for another minute or two in case you have any questions about the course. I hope that I get to spend this fall with each and every one of you. We're going to have a really fabulous time. I am so excited to see the creations that you make as you continue your journey to become free motion quilting rock stars. And like I said earlier, I want to be able to help you celebrate when you reach these milestones and these dreams come true, right? Pat says, I'm interested in trying the not dropped feed dogs. I've never tried that. I think my tension's better when I leave them up. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know how that works, but I think my tension's better. I think some of it is that it helps me slow down a little bit. It gives me just a little friction on the back of the quilt because I tend to break my top thread by quilting too fast. Blue Dog Dreaming says, remind me when it starts. We kick off orientation August 28th. Early September is when lessons will begin dripping. If you're traveling, like for Labor Day weekend here in the States, etc., fear not. You will get all set up and not miss anything over the holiday weekend, okay? Throughout our schedule, we have practice weeks built in to give you a little bit of buffer space because we know that life happens, right? Melissa, right now, it will be another year till we open this up again. So that could change, but our schedule right now is that we will not offer FMQA again until next fall. Yeah, which is a long time. Are there other motifs other than feathers? Yes, there are absolutely rectangular boxes. There, we could do triangular boxes as well. We talk about several different kinds of spiral chains and whatnot inside the class. There's about 30 different motifs inside the course. Yep. Lisa, I will send you an email tomorrow. I'm glad to hear that you are feeling better and we'll get Kajabi set up. Yep. All right. Rockstars, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to drop that link one more time. I hope to see you on the inside. And here's the thing, right? I know I'm sharing with you about this course. This is the part I'm probably not supposed to say, but I want you to know that even if Free Motion Quilting Academy is not the right fit for you right now, we are so excited to have you as part of the String and Story community and part of the Quilting Rockstars community. And we don't offer this content outside of this course, but we do have a lot of other stuff going on, a lot of other lessons. And please, even if FMQA is not the right fit for you right now, stay a part of our community. Keep quilting with us. We love being able to spend time with you. All right. Melissa says, where can we find the replay of this video? On YouTube, right where you're watching it right now. Brilliant question. All right, rock stars, have a fabulous rest of your evening. I will see you soon and hopefully in FMQA. Bye for now.